You're listening to ShipFam. On today's episode, Luke and I discuss Kidmoji, also known as Luke's crack app. Luke built this app for his younger nieces at a family reunion, and they become completely addicted to playing it. Hear all about how he designed it, and, as always, review us wherever you get your podcasts and follow us on Twitter at KCC Rogers and at Luke_Paghetti. I got manis with a friend yesterday just for fun, cool. And I'd never done painted nails. Like, oh, hey, let's do it.
Yeah, you should have gotten them black like your soul.
Nah, because all the dudes who get nail polish get black. And I think that might be why I dislike it so much, is I think black nail polish just like triggers like a dirty nails psychological
Oh, dude, you know what you should have
response
done? You should have gotten like multicam camo nails or something like that. Or like
that would definitely confuse people.
Desert tan nails, flat black.
Here's my other issue with black nail polish is every dude who gets his nails painted gets them painted black.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to post hoc rationalize why it gives me the ick, but it's kind of pick me energy. It's like the male equivalent of a pick me. Paint your nails.
Got it.
That's the vibe I get off it. So yeah. I'm hoping by going blue, I'm a little less pick me.
Got it.
But at the same time, please pick me. I'm single.
Yeah, right. Maybe you should be a pick me guy.
I should be a pick me ass bro.
Maybe instead, don't hate the game, Casey. Play the game.
Yeah.
Maybe it works. You need to go like full blown mystery from like early 2000s and wear like a big peacocking hat.
Oh man.
And wear like insane facial hair, like a goatee.
All right, this will be a hard pivot, but tell me about your crack app you built.
Oh, yeah. So we should totally name this episode Luke's Crack App because
we're doing it. It's Luke's Crack App.
Essentially what happened. Okay, so before we start, I just want to say a couple of things. Casey and I like to joke a lot about stuff, and we like dark humor. So we might joke about some things in this episode that may be a little bit distasteful to some because of the context, but we're just going to roll with it because life is short. And I just want to say before we kick off that I'm taking like safety very seriously with this app. So Luke's Crack App started in vacation week. I just had a vacation with my family and my two nieces were there. One of them is, we'll say, between the ages of 4 and 6. And the other one's between the ages of like 10 and 13, right?
Yeah.
And so we were just kind of sitting around and they don't really know that I do software. I mean, they know that I work on software, but they don't really know what that means, right? Because they haven't really internalized that mobile apps, run the kind of software that I write. Okay. And of course, kids are obsessed with mobile phones. I mean, mobile phones alone and like iPads are like crack for kids in this age range. And so I was just kind of sitting around and I was like, oh, it'd be fun if I made an app. And I should be clear, this is not a novel idea. Like I think I saw someone do something like this on Twitter like 2 or 3 years ago, but it's essentially a chat app where the keyboard is replaced with 6 emojis and you basically send a message in an emoji and then like a fictional character responds with an emoji, right? And so that's where it started. And in order to build this thing, the ones I've seen in the past, they were basically just like random emojis. So like kid would send an emoji and it would send back like a random emoji. Yeah. And also the emoji keyboard would have like, I don't know, like 200 emojis on it or something like that. Yeah. Right. So I wanted to make it like as simple as possible. So it's just 6 huge emojis. I mean, they're like type 192 point font. Like they're just like giant emojis in like this keyboard size thing at the bottom. And pretty immediately it grabbed their attention, especially the attention of the younger of the two. And the way I structured it was when the app starts up, it hits ChatGPT asking for the name of a character that like a child in the United States would be familiar with. And then to essentially send back like the first message and send back like 6 emojis that a kid can respond with. So ChatGPT actually like gives back the emojis to populate the keyboard. Yeah. And then every time the kid hits one of those emojis, it sends that message and then it gets back the response and it gets back another 6 emojis. And then what it does is in the current iteration, it only replaces the one that the kid sends, right? So we're overfetching, but it replaces that one. And so what that does is it gives them essentially infinite emojis, but only 6 to choose from at any given time. And they're allowed to like press all the ones that they like and then get new ones essentially.
Yep.
And that was like the first version. And it already in their minds like took off. Like they weren't fighting over it because they're good kids, but they were taking turns and they were getting really excited. And like we'd go outside and go swimming or something and then come back in. They'd be like, Luke, can I play with your app? Right. And so it just like kind of took off like that. So let's just start there.
Yeah. So I guess walk me through their like play session. What are they engaging with?
So there were multiple. We did so many play sessions, and there were so many iterations on this. So I don't have like a full timeline of how each thing went, but it evolved really quickly. Like for example, in the beginning, what I was doing is I was replacing all 6 emojis with like all new 6 emojis, and they found this like really frustrating because like everything was changing on the keyboard. Wanted. Yeah, and they were also like, we want to save. They would express it like, there are 2 emojis on this keyboard that I want to use. I want to save this other one so that I can send it after this one. And of course, in my mind, I was like, oh, well, we're gonna have to create like a favoriting workflow, and like it's get really complicated. And I think I was like laying in bed. I was like, oh, this is easy. We'll just only replace the one that they sent.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So I did that one thing, and then all of a sudden the usability, quote unquote usability, for them just like a skyrocketed.
Nice. Oh, that is not quite what I was getting at, but that is kind of interesting. I guess what I was wondering is like, what is fun about it for them? What do they like?
So it depends. It depends on how old they are. It depends on who was playing it. But the younger one really liked seeing the emojis. Right. So just the emojis as content really was something that she was really into. And then she really liked this idea of a certain character. Like one of her favorite characters is Bluey. And I don't know if you're familiar with Bluey. She would get a message back from Bluey, and it was just like the best thing ever. This idea that like Bluey was texting her back, basically.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And to clarify, she understands in a literal sense that's not Bluey, but she's like engaging in the imagination of it being.
So here's the interesting thing. And I was doing a little bit of poking around online about making apps for kids. Below a certain age, and I don't know what the cutoff is, but NN Group actually has some content about this. Below a certain age, kids can't differentiate between something like app content and advertising content. And they also have a hard time differentiating between like, this is real Bluey or this is fake Bluey. Just like someone would, basically the way I think about it, and I'm sure a child psychologist would split this differently, is I'm like, if you still believe in Santa, then there's probably a good chance that you believe that you're actually talking to Bluey.
So like almost the idea is imagination and reality aren't really firm, independent categories.
Yeah, exactly. With this sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and by the way, the whole Luke's Crack app, that was actually their parents that invented that name
the name
it, right?
Luke's Crack app. So I called it Kidmoji, and that's the name that it has, right? And as it kept playing it, all of a sudden their parents, who's like my sister and my brother-in-law, just started referring to it as Luke's Crack app. And then the whole family started calling it Luke's Crack app. So then we had like a 4 to 6 year old being like, Luke, can I play the Crack app? It's like, this is really funny. So actually in my App Store keywords, the first thing in the keywords is Luke's Crack app. So I don't have it in the actual like visible title or subtitle, but like the idea is that you'll be able to type in Luke's Crack app into the App Store and have it actually rank number 1.
It'll become like an Easter egg.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Okay, so I think there's a lot of directions that I could ask about. A lot of stuff I would love to hear about, what you might want to do with it and so on. But just to start, what angle are you most interested in with this app? Like, where do you want to take this conversation
so there's
and
a couple,
take the app?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that are pretty funny. When it comes to monetization, I have not... Like, I've floated some ideas around my head, but it's just not my focus. What I've been doing more actually is thinking about how to do like a really fast cost down if the thing explodes, so that I don't just get like billed into oblivion. So that I can both do like a fast cost down and figure out monetization kind of at the same time.
Yep.
And we can talk about that anytime. But actually, more than that, I realized while I was building this, as soon as the oldest one realized, my oldest niece realized that like I was making the app, she was like, okay, this is like the fucking coolest thing on the planet that you can do this, right?
So she's going to be engineer now.
Well, not necessarily. So what I realized is I was like, okay, if we can get like her in the app somehow, right? In a way that's like safe and everything that her parents are comfortable with, then it's going to be like instant social status booster, right?
Yeah.
So she can be like, I'm in an app on the App Store. And like the fact that she could like say that at school or something like that is going to be like instant celebrity status.
Yeah.
So we've kind of like engineered some ways to get her into the app so that she can have like a calling card, if you will.
Does she have a Bitmoji already? Are kids into that kind of stuff?
So they float around doing a Bitmoji, but we ended up landing on like an actual picture of the two of them, but we have like the deal with it sunglasses superimposed over their eyes. And we may change that, but like that's what's like in the current App Store listing that I've submitted to the App Store.
Yeah, because I'm totally sidetracking you here, but I'm imagining it's almost like Clippy pops up, and it's like the app, like a guiding you through the app, and it's
right. So what we did, because the thing that's so great about it is it's totally nonverbal. There's no text in this app except for the character names.
Yeah.
And so what I ended up doing was I considered like putting it in like a dialogue or something in the app, but what I did is I didn't actually necessarily want the whole world to like see these photos. I just wanted her to be able to show someone like the App Store listing or the app and be like, look, this is me. Like if one of the kids basically calls bullshit on her and is like, you're not in an app in the App Store, then she'd be like, no, look, like I'm right here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what I ended up settling on is I buried her in the App Store screenshots. So it's not like in the first three where you can see them when you do the first search, but if you tap in and you scroll through, then she'd be able to say like, oh, this is me, like this is my name or this is my face or whatever.
Does she seem hyped about it?
Dude, she's super hyped. Nice. She's like 11 out of 10 hyped about it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh man, but she doesn't want to become an engineer.
No, I kept joking with her because every day I'd wake up and she'd be like, hey, have you worked on this thing yet? And I'd be like,
she's your bot manager.
Dude, she's a PM. So I kept joking to her. I was like, you're going to be a PM one day.
Oh, that's so good. I love it.
So she's totally got the PM energy.
Yeah. Oh, that is awesome. Yeah. It's kind of funny how little kids, especially, I mean, of course, but also like normies feel like they don't get exposed that much to app dev.
No, not at all.
It's kind of funny. Yeah.
It is funny. The other thing that was funny is they kept asking me, like the youngest one kept asking me, like there's a different game on my phone that she was playing. I actually forgot the name of it because we call it Tweety Bird. It's called Tiny Wings. So shout out Tiny Wings. It's like this really awesome classic game on the App Store. But in any case, she kept asking me, she'd be like, hey, can you change Tiny Wings or can you change the Tweety Bird game? Because once she couldn't differentiate between like my app and the other app. Do you see what I mean?
Yep. It's just like you have the power to control apps.
Right, exactly. So
I mean, I feel like you
I had
must
to
have
tell
been
her
like
I can't do this one, but I can do this other one.
You must have been like a wizard or a magician in their minds at that point.
Yeah.
Cool.
Exactly.
I guess so let's go on to cost down and monetization up. What are you thinking there?
Yeah, so we'll do cost down and then we'll do launch strategy because there is actually I came up with a launch strategy this morning. It's very loose, but I think it's actually pretty good. So cost down is really simple. I'm going to be giving away some tricks here, but I think anyone, if they went down this path, they'd come to the same conclusion. So right now I'm hitting ChatGPT for the next message. And it's actually pretty good at doing things like if you send it like a paint palette emoji, then it'll send back like a paintbrush emoji. So it actually like kind of like reacts to what you're doing instead of it just being totally random, which is pretty dope. But what I'm doing is I'm actually using LukeHog, shout out lukehog.com, to collect events on every single message sent and received and the character name. And so my plan here is I'm just recording all of these events. And if I need to, I can just turn those into a database that's like, for this character name, if a kid sends this message, this is the distribution of responses, and just duplicate that distribution of responses.
You're creating a cache.
Yeah, basically.
On top of ChatGPT.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm almost like creating like the dumbest, most redneck version of an LLM, right? Because if an LLM is like, given this token, what comes next? I'm like, given this emoji, what comes next, right?
Yep. Nice. Okay, cool. How about monetization then? Where would that go?
So monetization, I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about this, and I'm not trying to, well, I've spent time thinking about it, but I'm not trying to pigeonhole myself into anything yet.
Yeah.
But there's a couple models I've seen. So if I want to release it as an app for kids, then there cannot be loot boxes. There cannot be in-app purchases. Yep. You can only have subscriptions, I think is the way it works. Oh, and you can't have ads either. You're not allowed to have ads if it's made for kids. Yeah.
Oh, that's so weird because like my read would almost be like, I feel like a subscription is almost more not kid appropriate.
I can tell you why. It's because of that. Well, I don't know if it's because of NN Group, but NN Group has content about this, and they essentially say kids under a certain age can't differentiate between app content and ad content. And so because they can't differentiate it and they don't understand the commercial nature of apps, then that's why ads are not allowed on Made for Kids.
Yeah, at the same time too, subscription seems a little rough because like, is a kid coherently deciding to make a subscription in a meaningful way?
Usually the subscription would be purchased by the parents. So it's like, imagine something like you got PBS Kids like on an iPad, and then you have like PBS Kids Plus that like has access to more content, and that might be like $9.99 a month. I'm just making things up here, but that's like the concept that they go for.
Yeah, okay. Interesting.
And so the way I've seen this manifest in games that are not for kids, but have a lot of kids playing them, like for example, Tiny Wings, that other game that I was talking about earlier, they do something interesting where they do have like a coin system, and we can talk about my coin system because that was like a huge change in how the app was used. And what they do is they say, if you pay $2.99, you can unlock double coins. So anytime you earn one coin, you actually earn two.
Yeah.
So it just like accelerates, it like reduces the grind. You're basically paying to reduce grind is what you're doing.
Yeah, and I know there's a lot of standard mechanisms like that. Like you show them their item unlock path, and then you show the like free path where you've got like you miss a bunch of items and you get to the big items slower. And then you show the pro path, and it's
I see. Like when you're doing the upsell,
are more frequent. Yeah,
or when
the
you're
big
trying
items
to do the
are more
sell.
frequent, and in the middle you have a bunch of like item drops that they wouldn't have gotten otherwise.
Yeah, I think that's
an
an even stronger model than the one I'm thinking of. The one I'm thinking of is literally like the gameplay is identical side by side, but one you just earn your coins that you're going to spend 2 times faster. But the one that you've offered is like a really interesting, like more robust model, I think.
Yeah. Anyway, you kind of dropped it, and now I can't get my mind off it. Explain the coins.
Yeah, so this is so funny. The way the game worked originally was you literally just had 6 emojis, and every time you tapped one, it would give you a new random one, kind of based on the theme of the character, right? So if it's Bluey, then you get like paw prints, you get like a dog emoji, you get like all this other stuff, right? Or if it's like Elsa from Frozen, it's like a snowman and like a sled and a snowflake and so on and so forth. Anyway, so it used to be you just click on an emoji, you tap on an emoji, and it would just give you a new one. But then they were playing Tiny Wings, and Tiny Wings has that coin system, and they kept calling it monies, and they would be like, all right, we're going to go get more monies in Tiny Wings, right? And so one day I was just sitting around, and I was like, hey, should we add monies to Kidmoji? And they were just like, yeah! And they like freaked out about it. So I sat down, and I was like, okay, what's the easiest way to like add monies to Kidmoji? And literally what I came up with, it's so simple, okay? It's basically whenever a character responds, it rolls like a 100-sided die, and if it's under a certain amount, like if it rolls a low number, then the character will respond with like a coin or like 5 coins or like 10 coins. And
So
when
the
it
character
does
is even kind of giving
the
them
character
monies.
it
that's
was the
great.
fastest way to do it was to have the character just respond with the coin emoji,
Which I think is accidentally great design.
yeah, right, exactly. So it's easy and accidentally great design. And then what happens is, of course, it plays like a nice noise, and it blows confetti on the screen, and the kids like freak out, right? And then I added some mechanisms in there to kind of change the way it felt a little bit. So, for example, after you win coins, you have to like send at least 5 messages before it'll start rolling die.
Yeah.
And then what it does is after 10 messages, it starts cranking up the chance that you'll get a payout. So you don't have the situation where you're sitting there just like rolling a die for like 50 turns. Right.
I went on a really deep dive on this exact UX problem. Game dev is 1,000 years ahead of app dev.
Yeah.
They are so much better than us. And they have this whole field, they call it like karmic randomness.
Yeah.
And there are a bunch of different really clever approaches to make sure you get something that feels fair, which turns out to not literally be fair. Namely, you don't want long dry runs or long like hot streaks.
Exactly.
Just
And that's
as
what I
you've
was trying to
designed
solve for.
Yeah, and I mean your way is like perfectly good. There's just some like galaxy brain ways I learned about.
The other thing I did is I wanted the concept of like small payouts and big payouts. So you can either win 1 coin, 5 coins, 10 coins, or 25 coins. And the way I do that is I have a chance to get 1 coin, which I think is like a 10% chance. And then for the other ones, I just scale the probability to match that same like value probability, like chance per 1 coin, but like down to the 25 coins. So it's like it's like 25 times less chance or something like that.
Yeah.
And then when I roll the die, if it rolls down to that low chance, then I just reward the 25. And if it rolls to that 1 chance, I just roll that. So it's just like a bunch of windows, basically.
Yeah. It makes sense.
And it sounds complicated, but it's like this whole thing is like 10 lines of code.
Yep. Yeah, I mean it's just a way to die.
Yeah.
It's code for a way to die with like your guardrails to prevent hot or dry streaks.
Now, the interesting thing is that what the gameplay style, when they were playing it in the original form, is they were like, oh, like I sent a message to Bluey, Bluey sent me a message back, right? That was the way it worked.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I added monies, and this is before I even added the ability to buy anything, it like instantly turned into a slot machine for 6-year-olds, right? Like straight up, it was like they were just like smashing buttons to like try to get monies like over and over again. And the game like completely took like a really like perverse turn. And it was like right around, it was funny because before that, they were already calling it Luke's Crack App. But then after that, we started calling it like the Skinner box for 6-year-olds.
Oh no. Yeah. Oh man. I guess so what can you buy with the monies? Can you buy with monies now?
Yeah, so because I was doing this in stages, it was like day 2 or 3 I added the ability to collect monies. And then the day after that, they needed to do something with it. So what I did is I added 6 emojis. So basically you can swipe the keyboard, you can swipe right on the keyboard or swipe left on the keyboard, and it shows more emojis. And there's like a little page indicator at the bottom. So you have some idea that like this is what's going on. And I didn't even tell them about it, and they found it within like 30 seconds. And the reason they found it so quickly was, first of all, I think they saw the page indicator and they were like trying to tap it and see what was going on. And in tapping it and like moving their fingers around, they saw that like the keyboard could move, and then they like instantly moved it over. So it took them less than 30 seconds to find this thing, which is kind of cool.
It sounds like kids are the smartest users I've ever heard about.
Dude, they are like the most chaotic, and they can find all of these crazy flows. Like, because normally
if I put
I'd be
like a giant flashy button.
Yeah, exactly.
I've literally put like big flashy buttons in my app and then done user surveys, and like 50% of people are like, "What button?" I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. I think another reason is they're just fully present, right? So they're fully present, and they're just like chaotically using the device, and they just discover everything very quickly. Yeah. So then what I did is I had 6 emojis, and you can unlock them with coins, right? Like there's a heart emoji for 10 coins, there's a star emoji for 25 coins, there's a balloon for 50 coins, and so on and so forth. And what was interesting is originally I had some things like an ice cream cone and like a snowman, right? And when they first saw it, they swiped over and they gave like this weird face. And I was like, what do you think of the emojis? And they're like, I really don't like the snowman, right?
Okay.
And I was like, why? And they both at the exact same time said, it's really creepy. So they experienced the snowman emoji as being like really creepy. And I was thinking to myself, like,
Weird.
snowman, like kids love snowman, right? Like, come on, like what's better than a snowman, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, the snowman emoji is really creepy. And I was like, okay, what do you want instead? And they were both like, unicorn. So I just like swapped the snowman for a unicorn, right? And then I had one other thing. I can't remember what it was. It was like a backpack or something random. And the youngest one was like, hey, where's the poop emoji? And I was like, that's a really good question. And I was like, which of these should I replace with a poop emoji? And she's like, totally get rid of the backpack, right? So we dumped the backpack and we dumped the snowman and we added a unicorn emoji and a poop emoji. And then it became like an arms race to see who could get the poop emoji first.
I feel like you could even do like unlock to re-roll the emoji screen. Like spend coins to re-roll
exactly.
it.
Some like spend like 5 coins to like get a whole new fresh set of 6 emojis or something.
Cool. But by the way, I've looked up the snowman on my separate screen here, and I'm with the kids. The snowman.
It's pretty creepy.
Man.
Yeah, it's definitely
a creepy
creepy.
looking snowman.
It's a wicked creepy snowman. The Apple one's death creepy.
Yeah. What happens with the conversations? Is their character conversation purely ephemeral? Or do they have like a, here's all your chats that you have with all these characters?
Oh, no. It's literally like you quit the app and you come back and everything's gone.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is they did not care at all.
Funny.
There's also this button in the upper right where you press a button and it just re-rolls a new character. So they would sit there and they would just smash this button. They'd be like, don't want to talk to SpongeBob. Don't want to talk to Mr. Rogers. Don't want to talk to Dora the Explorer.
Wait, is Mr. Rogers one of the options?
Don't want to talk to Elsa. I'll have to look at the list, but it's like all kinds of random stuff. And then they'll be like, okay, we got Bluey. Like, we hit pay dirt on Bluey. Now we're just going to text Bluey for like an hour.
Oh, man. Like every layer of this app is a different slot machine.
Yeah, every layer of the app is a different slot machine. That's exactly right.
It's slot machines all the way down.
Yeah, and you know what's funny is like both their parents would like try it every now and then. So my brother-in-law, after I added the ability to get monies, I handed it off to him, and he sat down and he started like trying to figure out what emojis he had to send to get more money, and he had himself convinced that like a certain set of emojis were giving him more money. And I was just sitting there just like laughing to myself because it's literally just a dice roll. And it's just like so interesting how much people like add narrative to technology.
Dude, random elements are huge. Yeah, it's crazy.
The other thing that's funny is because the character re-rolling is so random, they kept wanting to like go back to a certain character and they would just hit their smashing the reroll button over and over and over again. So what I did is I implemented a little Easter egg where if you tap the name of the character, then it would get you back to like your most texted character.
Huh. Okay. Interesting.
And it was literally that straightforward, right? And so for them, I hard coded in Bluey because I knew that's what it was. But for actual release, it's just based on who you text the most.
So is this app live yet?
No, but it's going to be. I'm not religious, but God willing, because I just submitted it to the Apple App Store, and they've already gotten back to me with like copyright infringement, and, like all this stuff. So I'll read back to you what I said to them. And I'm like, to be honest with you, I'm just like so not worried about this because I have some other things that I can do. Yeah. But what I said was these characters are user generated content protected under fair use doctrine and First Amendment speech, and moderation is not required under Section 230. So I have no idea what they're going to say to me, but that's what I messaged them back with.
Yeah, interesting. I don't know where these lines are. This is somewhere where I'm not well informed at all. My general impression is you're allowed to reference a character if you don't like have images, but I could be super, super wrong on that.
And I'm sure that they'll take like the most conservative approach is my expectation here, because they don't want to get involved in all this. But that's like the current hang up. But like, to be clear, I'm like 0 out of 10 worried about it.
Editor's note here, the App Store did, in fact, approve Kidmoji shortly after this episode was recorded.
Yeah, I mean, I found a lot of times with App Store, it's like they don't even know what's going on.
Yeah.
Especially when I've gotten stuck in purgatory. I'm pretty sure each time I was getting different people
Yeah, totally. That's
assigned
definitely
to
a
my
thing.
case, and that their case notes were incomplete from when I was originally rejected, because I don't think anybody actually knew with specificity why my app was rejected.
Yeah, and you know what? To be honest with you, and I sent that message back to them, but right after I sent it back to them, I was like, you know what? I should have just resubmitted the app without any messages just to see
Like,
what
not
would have
preloaded.
happened. Yeah, exactly. Oh, no. I mean, like, resubmit the app without any messages to app review. So there's no, like, case notes.
Yeah.
So, like,
yeah,
silently resubmit with no case notes and just see what happens. Because one of them was
Yeah.
really wild. I showed you the screenshots, right? And they told me that the screenshots were not allowed because the screenshots did not show the app in use. And
weird.
I was like, excuse me, this is totally within the realm of what's like common and best practices on the App Store. And by the way, we have, this specific screenshot shows in-app content, right?
Yeah, I mean, App Store is just random. It's so random.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like an inverse Skinner box. You tap it, and then there's like a 1 in 10 chance you get a horrible.
Something bad happens. Yeah. It's still a Skinner box. It's just not a positive. It's not positive. No one ever said positive operant conditioning, Casey. They only just said operant conditioning box. I mean, come on. It could still be negative operant conditioning.
Okay, that's your next.
It's like the scene at the end of A Clockwork Orange. That's the negative Skinner box. When his eyes are peeled open, they're making him watch the videos.
Oh my God.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's interacting with Apple or Google as an app dev.
Yeah,
Here's your
right.
next app, by the way. It's App Store Review Simulator, where you play like an overworked employee trying to review apps, sort of like Papers, Please, and it gets like
Dude, you know what it is? It's that
authoritarian
meme where it's
dystopian.
like the guy like and he's like and he's like feverishly smashing the keyboard like and it's like that's what it is.
Yeah, because to be clear, I don't hate the random dude in some offshore workforce on the other end of my app review who like keeps copy pasting the same thing 10 times at me. I don't hate that dude. I hate Apple. Like, Apple's the bad guy here.
Honestly, I don't even hate any of them. Like, I look at this stuff now. There was a time where I would have seen something like this. And I would have been like, oh my God, this is like the best idea ever. It's going to get flushed down the toilet. And it's just like, I'm just so not worried about it, right?
Yeah.
If it doesn't go out in this format, it'll go out in a slightly different format. And it's going to be like 95% as potent. And like, I'm just not even going to care, right?
Yeah. So we hit on it a little bit at the beginning. I'd love to take the back end to just dive deep on, I guess, just the whole moral and safety end of the whole thing, and just to leave it open-ended and see what you're thinking and where you see the boundaries are, and like what are the directions you want to take to make sure it doesn't feel icky to you, the whole app?
So I don't know, in its current form, like all the Skinner box jokes aside, it's like, it doesn't feel icky to me in its current form.
Yeah.
To be honest with you.
No. I don't think so either, but I feel like it's important just for us to walk through that side of it.
Yeah. This is something that I think where you would start to get into some questionable areas is once you start monetizing, because I don't know if you notice this, but recently on App Store Connect, there's a big banner at the top that basically says, our rules around loot boxes have changed. Right. Okay. And so people are taking loot boxes very seriously. And you and I have talked about this privately in the past. So I don't know how materially different, buying coins are, for example, than buying loot boxes.
Yeah.
My guess is that it's like fairly similar, but, not as direct. Right. So if you're buying a $1 loot box, right, is that worse than buying $1 worth of coins, which you could earn in the app by playing it and then buying a loot box? I actually couldn't tell you. And I don't know what Epic Games is even doing.
This comes with the not a lawyer disclaimer, but my understanding is the key distinction is the random element. that when you buy X units of coins and then you choose to buy that on a purchase you know ahead of time, there is no random element, and thus it's seen as a lot less psychologically addicting, and therefore a lot
because the
more
thing that's scary to me
appropriate.
about loot boxes is like if you were like this is $1 to open a box with a random item in it, then that's literally a slot machine. That's literally
Yes.
like you're spending $1, you're getting a random thing out.
Yeah.
This is more like you're pressing a button, you're getting a random amount of coins out, which you then use to buy something you already know what it is.
Yeah. Well, I think the important distinction there is it doesn't cost you to play, so you're still engaging with that like randomness psychological
Yeah.
element that people kind of get hooked on, but you're not charging them for it. I think that's the key part with the loot box laws. At least, once again, all this comes with Not a Lawyer. I know there's been some hilarious kind of evil shenanigans around loot boxes, like Valve famously, when they weren't allowed to do loot boxes anymore in some jurisdictions, created this system where you had an X-ray device and you could see what was in your loot box before you opened it using the X-ray device.
Yeah.
And therefore, it was not random.
Yeah.
But you could only X-ray one case at a time. So if you wanted to X-ray the next case, you had to open the case you had already X-rayed.
Of course.
Which
yeah.
was-
So you got to burn through the first one to get to the next one.
Yep. So it's hilariously evil because it's literally just the exact same mechanic.
It's just like off by one. It's the same mechanic off by
Exactly.
one. Yeah.
Yep, they shifted everything so the purchase is never happening
That's amazing.
without knowing what you were about to purchase.
Maybe
But you
I'm
weren't
like
trying-
secretly a horrible person, but I love this stuff. Like I think this stuff is like hilarious, and
Yeah.
the problem solving behind it is like amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I am of two minds, and I know I'm going to tease this episode, but we have a lost episode, the one we recorded the other week, where you and I just kind of like dove deep into the gray area of tech.
Yeah.
And I decided we ought to pull it just because I think I'm too much of a downer in that episode.
You know what
My
I
position-
described it to my dad as like banker brain, right? Where I'm
Okay.
like, so the way I think of banker brain is like you're a person, you're looking at a spreadsheet. There's like a lot of like despair and dismay like baked into the spreadsheet, and you're just like going down and figuring out the numbers, right? And you can look at this and be like, oh, dude, if we change this one thing, we'd make way more money. And you've like siloed your like banker brain from like your I care about humanity brain.
Yeah,
Right.
which I'm
And so
torn
like
about.
I feel like I can look at
Yeah.
something like that and be like, oh my God, the off by one valve like X-ray thing is like hilarious and genius, right? But then actually putting it into production where it would actually have like an effect on people, that to me is like a separate thing. So like I'll laugh about it and then I'll be like, oh, should we actually do this? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm with you there too. Like, I think we're both people that love to talk through these things and like think they're entertaining and interesting, and will laugh about it, but then still do separately have the moral decision and all the fair moral calculus.
Exactly.
Like,
I think a lot
is
of
this
people are like,
appropriate?
oh, this is immoral. I can't like laugh about this. And I'm just like,
Yeah,
no, this
yeah.
is like hilarious. Like what they did
Yeah.
is genius. Like you gotta like
Yeah.
respect that to some degree, right?
Yeah, I mean, to some degree, like, the evilness of it is part of what makes something funny. And
Right.
not talking about Kidmoji, like, I think we should probably get back on track. To me, the vibe...
Mm-hmm. Talking
I'm
about
getting
like
is that
hilarious dark patterns.
Yeah, Kidmoji, it's definitely a little hilarious dark patterny, but also
Once
it's
you
just
added
a
the coins,
game.
it was hilarious dark patterny.
Yeah,
Because
yeah, before that,
it
it's
was literally
honestly just
like
kinda
I'm
fun.
just like it's like I'm just texting like this character, right?
Absolutely.
But then as soon as you had the coins, it's like I'm just gonna smash this button and wait for money to come out. But can I talk about that real quick? Actually,
Yeah,
Did you have a thought you wanted to finish?
No, go.
Okay. So what was interesting about this is as soon as the goal was to get as much money as possible, they started finding exploits that I didn't realize were there. So Flutter does this thing where like you can tap multiple buttons at the same time
Oh, whoa.
and release them. And I didn't even know this is a thing until they started playing. So they got to the point where they were like tapping 3 buttons and releasing at a time,
God.
and they were getting 3x money out of it, right?
Oh, that is
Because-
incredible.
Isn't that amazing? Because I had a loading state, but the loading state was oh, sorry, that's not even a loading
After.
state.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, 3 buttons, it would go into a loading state, and then 3 messages would come back, and they'd start 3xing their money, right?
Oh my God.
And I was like, okay, that's incredible. I was like, I actually don't want to fix that because I
Yeah.
feel like every game needs some sort of Easter egg where like
Yeah.
if your kid's in a schoolyard, you can be like, hey, did you know that you can do like the 3-finger
Yeah.
trick? And people are like,
Yeah.
wait, what are you talking about? Right. So I left that in, but it gets even better than that. What I had was a Boolean loading state. Okay. And so it would basically say, you would send a message, it would go into loading is true, and then when a message came back, it would say loading is false, right? And then you could send another message.
Yeah.
Because these messages come back at different times, what was happening is they'd smash 3, right? And then 1 would come back before the other 2 came back, and they could smash another 3. And then the second one and
Yeah.
third one would come back after that while those 3 were in flight, and they could smash another 3.
Oh my God.
So they were able to stack like 50 in-flight requests just because I had that Boolean like loading true flag.
Yeah,
and I was sitting there and I was watching, and they were just smashing 3 buttons at a time, and they would just, it was like incredible. A game that was supposed to take you like, let's say 15 minutes to get 100 coins was taking them like 30 seconds. They were just burning through cash. And they
Yeah.
figured this out in like 2 minutes, right?
That's insane.
It was
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
So then I had to go back and I did basically reference counting where I'm like, how many requests do we have in flight? And if it's greater than 0, then it's considered loading. So I did fix like the stacking request
Yeah.
exploit, but I left in the multi-touch one because I wanted them to be able to like find a trick and like be able to tell
Yeah.
people about it, right?
Yeah, I've got some like willful tricks inserted into Dribble. Like one user really wanted a give up mid-round and re-roll
Yeah.
button. I thought that would remove some of the tension of like once you mess up a round, you've messed it up, so you really don't want to mess it up. So I
Yeah.
added like long press on this one like random piece of the UI, and then it'll re-roll for you. And I'm just gonna tell you about that, and everybody else has to find it on their own. People love that stuff, not just kids.
Yeah. The other thing I did, and I should be clear about this, as I was developing this, I was talking to their parents, which is my sister and brother-in-law, and they are very, I would say they're on like the more conservative side of how much screen time they give their kids and like what they're allowed to do. So I felt like they were pretty representative of, let's say the parent who is, younger and is like uses tech a lot, is like very tech savvy, but is a little wary of their kids getting
Yeah.
like hooked on anything.
Yeah.
And one thing I asked them about is I was like, hey, would you feel more comfortable about this if I change the coins to gems? And they were like, oh yeah, totally, right?
Interesting.
So they felt that using gems instead of coins to like break that concept of like this is money, right?
Yeah.
Into like this is like a gem, and you're still spending it like money, like it's functionally identical, but just like how we're referring to it in terms of like icons and stuff like that. So I ended up
Yeah.
switching it over to gems, and they said that they felt a lot better about that.
How do they feel about the whole thing? Like if they step
So
back?
I think there's a couple things I still need to like talk to them, because like we were in a situation where there's like a lot going on because like a family vacation, but I did talk to them. They said that it was fine. They thought the whole thing was really funny. They thought the Skinner box thing was funny, but they were definitely like a little bit like, there was like this running joke that was like, what are you doing to my kid? Right.
Yeah,
but it was like done in like a funny way, right? It wasn't done in
Yeah.
like a really like upset way. And so I need to talk to them to just like get like the final say on what they think about it in like its current state. But I got the sense that they just thought that it was like a pretty funny thing.
Gotcha. Cool.
Not any worse than like any other like game that a kid might play.
Yeah. Anything else you want to wrap up on? Any final notes? you
Oh,
wanna leave
launch
people
strategy.
with?
So
Yeah.
I want to talk about this real quick. So I was trying to figure out how I wanted to launch this, and originally I was just gonna like put it on the App Store and then just tell the kids that was on the App Store, just kind of like see if anybody, like if they told their friends and like other people started downloading it, just out of curiosity. And then I realized that I think what I really want to do is launch it on the oldest kid's first day of school. So because if I
Yeah.
launch it now, then she'll probably forget about it by the time she goes to school. But if I'm like, happy first day of school, Kidmoji's on the App Store, then she can be like, oh my God, guess what happened?
Yeah,
and then I'll have a better chance of lighting off. So a little bit of like
man.
evil mad scientist
Yeah.
in the background over here, but that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah. All right.
All right, I'm
Talk
gonna
to you
stop
later,
this.
man.
All right. Sounds good.